If you've been writing Python for a while, you've probably gotten pretty used to using the in keyword for checking membership. You want to know if a certain value is in a list or a dictionary. Lots of times we want to know if this is true when we're writing tests too, so unit test gives us assert in and assert not in. There are a couple of other handy list, tuple, and dictionary assertions too. Let's take a look at them.
For our next set of tests, we're going to use a couple of new classes that I wrote. They're here in this dice.py file inside the dice directory. And so these represent a die roller like you might use for a tabletop game or a role-playing game. You can make a roll. Where is that class? There's the class. You can make a roll of dice with a string like 1d6 or 2d6 or 5d8, whatever. And it'll create however many dice with however many sides. And it rolls them to get a number. So I'm going to test a few things in this module. The first thing I want to test is whether or not a die up here is created correctly. So let's set up a new file here that we're going to call test.py. And we need to import unit test. And we need to import dice. So we have everything set up. And then let's do a class die tests. Unit test.testCase. And we're going to use the setup method. So def setup. And I'm going to create just a couple of dice directly. I'm going to make a d6, which is dice.die with 6 sides. And I'm going to make a d8, which is dice.die with 8 sides. Okay, so now let's test the creation of a die. So they've been created, and I should now be able to do self.assert equal self.d6.sides to the number 6. A d6 should have 6 sides. And I should be able to do self.assert in self.d6.value the range 1 through 7. Because remember, with range, we have to specify a higher end that's 1 higher than the number we actually want as the highest end. So I've got everything in here. Now, it should be impossible for this test to fail, because this is exactly how we're creating the dice. It should just work. But it's always good to have tests like this so that if your die creation, whatever your object is, the creation changes, your test will warn you about it. And then you can either fix your tests or you can fix your code, whichever one is now out of date. Okay, so I'm not going to bother with the if name main thing. I'm just going to run the tests. So python-m unit test. I need to get into that directory. Dice. There we go. Python-m unit test test.py. Ran one test. Test is fine. All right. I also want to test that I can add multiple dice together. So let's write a quick little test for that. So def test add self.assert is instance self.d6 plus self.d8 and int. So what is instance does? So instance is like the instance function in the shell, which says, tell me if this variable is an instance of this class. Well, assert instance works the same way, but it's an assertion. So run this assertion, make sure that the first item, this one right here, is a member of this class, an int, or an instance of this class, an int. And then we're good. It comes back as either true or false. Okay? So let's also, before we go any further in this, let's write some tests for the roll class. So roll tests, unit test.testCase. I want to make a couple other things here as well, so that they are always around. So hand1 dice.roll 1d2, because the smallest die we can have is a 2-sided die. And self.hand3 dice.roll 3d6. Okay, so hand 1 because there's 1 die in it, hand 3 because there's 3 dice in it. And I want to be able to test the upper and lower boundaries of these total roles, right? So these are going to be a lot like the ones we did on the rock, paper, scissors game. But instead of the greater and less, we're going to use assert greater equal or assert less equal so that we don't have to add on that extra number. So anyway, let's do test lower. And we're going to do self.assert greater or equal. The int of self.hand3 is 3. Because we have 3 dice, the lowest number on each of them is 1. So the lowest that those 3 dice can add up to is 3. And then let's also do test upper and self.assert less or equal. The int of self.hand3 should be 18 because 3 6-sided dice, 6 is the highest number for each one. 6 plus 6 plus 6 is 18 or less if they're not there. So we can do this int call because we defined the dunder int method in our class. This is great because if we ever change our class to where we can't make an int of it, then this is going to immediately blow up. And we're going to go, oh, this doesn't work right. Now, our class also has a dunder contains method. And our die class has a dunder eq method that's defined. So we can write a test to make sure that a given die is inside of a given hand. So let's test that out too. So let's do test membership. And we need to make a couple of things here. So let's do our test die is equal to dice.die 2 sides. And test die.value is self.hand1.results0.value. So we're making a fake die. We're giving it the same number as whatever's in hand 1. And then we're going to do self.assert in test die self.hand1.results. So we're just making sure that a die with the value of the first or only die in hand 1 is in hand 1. We're cheating a little bit, but it's okay. There are some ways around this. We could do mocking and stuff like that, but that's not important at this point. Okay, let's run these tests. So we come back down here, and we run our tests again. All 5 tests pass. Everything's good. So this is actually really good. It covers most of the functionality in our 2 classes that we'd want to test. We do have a couple of try except blocks that we want to test, but we'll cover those in the next video.
I love working with simple assertions like those. They give me a lot more confidence about what's going on in my code because I can make sure that my collection objects are holding exactly what I expect them to.